Okay. Now, today we are going to discuss about like the Spring Boot introduction part. Okay. Now, already we discussed about like the Spring. Then, what problem we faced with the Spring? Okay. What type of problems we are going to facing with the Spring? Now we know that like Spring is not providing any annotations for the predefined classes. Okay. Now some of that like it's provided, but what about like others? Okay. Now here we need to write a lot of configuration. Okay, need to write a lot of configuration. Now, whenever we need to develop like a Spring MVC application, Spring Web MVC applications, okay, now we need to provide, okay, we need to provide the configuration for like a component scan, okay, like a dispatcher servlet. Yeah, now component scan and a dispatcher servlet and like a web jars and view resolvers, like web jars and the view resolvers. Okay, now these configurations and extra we need to provide. For suppose if it is a JPA like with the hypernet, all these things, now with Spring MVC, if you want to write it, okay, again, now we need to provide like a data source related classes, and like again, like entity manager, okay, entity manager and transaction manager, all these configuration we need to provide it. Okay, now as well as if you want to go with like the message queue like NoSQL and with related like Spring MVC, we need to provide like a cache management, like a cache configuration also we need to provide it. Okay, cache configuration and the message queue configuration. Okay, now NoSQL like database configuration, these are the extra things. Now, there's a lot of configurations we need to provide with the Spring applications. Okay. Now, here, that's why even though like these configurations each and separately we need to write. Okay, it will take a lot of time as well as like a lot of configuration we need to write. Okay, that's why like the Spring Boot is entered into the picture. For suppose if you observe like if you have the like Spring framework like this, it is a Spring framework. On the top of the Spring framework, now the Spring Boot is developed. Okay. Now the Spring Boot is developed on the top of the Spring framework. Okay. Now here this Spring, okay, this Spring Boot is providing some type of features, like important features. What is a Spring Boot? What is the main goal? What is the main objective of Spring Boot in the sense like it is a developed and quickly created Spring-based applications without requiring to developers to write the boilerplate code of configuration again and again. Okay, without providing multiple configuration here. Okay, here the main goal of Spring Boot, okay, now is used to create Spring based applications. Okay, Spring based applications without providing, okay, without providing lot of configuration again and again. Okay, again and again. Now it will not provide it. Then by using Spring Boot, we can develop RAD applications. Okay, RAD application. What's it mean by RAD? This is like a rapid application development. Okay, rapid application development. Now here we have some features of like Spring Boot. We have, okay, we have some Spring Boot features. What are the Spring Boot features we have? We'll see that. Okay, now first one simply here like auto configuration. Okay, auto configuration like embedded server. Like third one starters, like fourth one actuators. Okay, now here we have a like externalized configuration also we have. externalized configuration, and embedded servlet like container support also. It's a game. Okay, that is also one of the Spring Boot features. Okay, now Spring Boot features, simply here we have four mainly features like auto configuration, embedded server, starters, and the actuators, and the externalized configuration. Okay, now what does it mean by like auto configuration? Okay, if you observe in the case of like Spring Framework, like we are going to provide cache configuration, message queue configuration, like NoSQL database configuration, and a component configuration. Okay, dispatch servlet configuration, like web jars like configuration, view resolver configuration, and data source configuration, anti major configuration, transaction major configuration. Okay, everything we need to provide it here. Okay, explicitly we need to write the code. It will take a lot of time to the developer. Okay, now that's why the Spring Boot is providing itself. Okay, we don't need to write like all the lines of code. Like Spring Boot, it will take care about like a configuration of like about like whatever the jar files we mentioned. Okay, now further, like we have at the data Spring Boot application. Okay, this annotation will take care about like all the configuration. Okay, it is equals to at the data component scan. Okay, at the rate enable transaction management. Okay, now at the rate configuration. Okay, at the rate configuration. Now it is equals to like all the configuration file about at the rate Spring Boot application. Okay, now if you observe, now simply here I can search like at the rate Spring Boot application. Now see here, this Spring Boot. At the rate Spring Boot application annotation is used to mark a configuration class, okay, that declares one or more bean methods and also triggers auto configuration and the component scanning. Okay, it is the same as, okay, the declaring class with the configuration annotation, enable auto configuration, and the component scan annotation. Okay, now without mentioning like this many annotations for the configuration class, just we can mention like that Spring Boot application. This annotation is enough to handle that configuration class. Okay, now here that is like the Spring Boot application is providing that auto configuration without writing like a boilerplate code as a developer to decrease the time also. Okay, now what about like a embedded server? Okay, embedded server is like in built server. Okay, if you want to go with like Spring Boot application, like if you want to like we need to download the jar files, all these things. Okay, from the server only we are going to download. But here we don't have any server. Then the Spring Boot will take care about like here we have a lot of servers we have in the market like Tomcat, like WebLogic, like WebSphere, like all these things we have different types of servers we have. Okay, now by default, the Spring Boot will download like Tomcat. It will apply the path. It will set up it itself. Okay, we don't need to worry about like all these things to set up all the path. Okay, the Tomcat will take care about it. Okay, inbuilt server. Okay, now next the starters. Okay, starters in the sense like simply here, what's the purpose of the starters? This is simply we can call it a dependencies. Okay, dependencies we can call it. Okay, the dependencies in the sense like up to like core Java level, we create like we separately download the jar files. Okay, if it is a MVC application like Maven applications, we go to like Google and or suppose simply here I want like a Spring Core Maven dependency. Like we need to search in the Google like this. Okay, now we need to go to this URL. Okay, now we need to search for that like usages, highest usages. Okay, now we can select like we can select the versions like this. Okay, without doing like all these things, okay, the Spring Boot is provided. Okay, the starters. Okay, now we have a lot of starters we have. For suppose if we want to like add the server, simply here we have the Spring Web starters we have. Okay, now if you want to add like Spring like JPA Hibernate Spring Core Spring Context, we have a Spring Data JPA starter we have like a Spring JDBC. Okay, Spring JDBC starter we have. Okay, like this, a lot of the starters are provided. Okay, now if you observe like a Spring Boot starters. Here, for suppose if we want to add the dependencies, these are all are like the starters one, like Spring Web Services. Okay, now like Spring Session, for suppose Spring Web here, build web including RESTful applications using MVC, uses Apache Tomcat as a default embedded container. Okay, now Spring Boot .jpl Lombok also we have. Okay, Lombok in the sense like we don't need to add, we don't need to write like getters and setters. Okay, like a default constructor. Okay, param constructor, two string method. We don't need to write all these things. Just you can mention that Lombok annotation. We can use directly annotation like setter, getter. Okay, no argument constructor. That all are constructor. Directly we can write with the annotations. Okay, now like that we have a lot of the starters is providing. Just we can select it. Okay, that it will checking for that version. All these things it will take care. We don't need to worry about like all the versions, all these things. Okay, now that's about like the starters. Now what about like actuators? This actuators is providing that REST URLs of REST endpoints of URL. now Now it will provide like that health condition of our project and environment slash environment env, like environment about like all the like REST URLs, that handler methods, whatever we have in that our project. Okay, the entire project, like how many threads are going to be executing, what is the health condition about like project, all these things will take care by that actuator. So, okay, now whatever the configuration we provided here, if you want to provide like a external configuration like GitHub, like all the other platforms, like okay, other dependencies, if you want to provide it, we can use that external configuration. Okay, now these are the main Spring Boot features we have here. Okay, then how we can create like a Spring Boot project? Okay, Spring Boot project, how we can create it? For suppose simply in the Eclipse also we can install like separate like a plugin. Okay, now without doing all these things simply here, now we can go to the Google and we can download a STS tool. Now STS download. Okay, now whenever you type like Google in STS download, now tools, like you can see like the first thing spring.io.tool, https colon spring.io like tools. Now you can open the these tools. If you scroll down, you can see like a Spring tools for Eclipse. Okay, now you can download this one. Okay, the Windows. Now this Windows, if you download this ones here, if you click on this link, automatically it's going to be downloading here. Okay, now I already downloaded. Now that's why I'm going to remove this one. Okay, now later downloading. Now we are going to get some jar files. Now you need to extract the jar files. You can double click on this thing. You need to install it. Okay, after installation, okay, now you will get like this here, the Spring Tool Suite 4. Okay, now this thing you need to open it. Now here we are going to create like a Spring Boot applications. Okay, Spring Boot applications. Now I'm going to open like Spring Boot workspace here. It's taking some time. Yeah. Now here we have like one more concept, like we can provide like web services. Okay, what does it mean by the web services? Now, web services is one of the technology. Okay, one of the technology is used to transfer. Okay, it is used to transfer the data from, okay, one application to another application. Okay, one application to another application. Okay, for suppose we have an SBI card we have. Okay, nearby. Okay, nearby ICICI ATM machine we have. Okay, now can I withdraw money in the sense like yes. Okay, even if you have like other ATM card, now we can withdraw like money in the ICICI ATM machine. For suppose, consider like a SBI card is developed by like Java. Okay, now ICICI ATM machine is developed by Python. Okay, now even though I can withdraw money, okay, whenever I insert the SBI card inside like ICICI ATM machine, okay, simply The first ICC server is checking that all the data, whatever I entered the username and password, PIN number. Okay, if it is not there, simply it's looking for that SBA server. Okay, and it will go to the request is going to the SBA server. Okay, the SBA server will check all the data. Okay, it is informing to the ICC server, like you can provide that, you can provide like you can withdraw money. Okay, simply here we can withdraw money. But then how these two applications are working together? Okay, now they are going to transferring the data from one application to another application. Now, even though if we have the two different languages, okay. Now, web services is okay. Now, language is independent. Okay. Now, the web services is a language independent. Okay, which type of language you are using? Okay, it will provide it. Okay, within the web services, here we have two types: SOAP based web services and again RESTful web services. Okay, the RESTful web services. SOAP based in the sense like it's looking like both the applications are same. Like it is a the SOAP is like a language dependent. Okay, the RESTful web service is a language independent. Okay, it will not check in that which type of language you are using. It will transfer the data. But in the case of SOAP-based applications, it will looking for the same application. Other side also like a way we need to develop that application is the same language. Okay, then only it will interact. Otherwise, it will not interact. Okay. Now, then how the data going to be transferred to like how they can understand with each other. Okay. Now, in the form of like a JSON. Okay, the JSON in this is like a JavaScript object notation. Okay, JavaScript object notation. Okay, now this Java object is converted to JSON. Again, the JSON object is converted to Python object. Okay, whenever like some ICC machine to like SBI card, the Python object is converted to JSON and the JSON to Java object. Here, the conversion is going to be happen by using like Jackson jar files. Okay, the Jackson jar file will take care about like the conversion of okay Java to JSON, JSON to Java. All these things. Okay, it's going to be happen by using okay Jackson jar file. Okay, the Jackson jar file I will show you that the later. Okay, now we need to observe like how to create a Spring Boot application. Okay, now okay, it is the same as like this workspace is same as like Eclipse only. Yeah. Now first we need to select like the open perspective. Within the open perspective, select Java EE. Okay, select Java EE. Now after selecting Java EE, now click on the file, new. Okay, here we can select a Spring Starter project. Okay, Spring Starter project. Now, Spring Starter project I selected. See here, it is using by default URL like start.spring.io. Okay, means what? Like this URL it is using. Okay, this URL using. See here, from this URL. Now, this way also we can create the project. There are two ways to create the project. Okay, it, by using a Spring initializer also we can create it. By using STS also we can create it. Okay, see, I will show you later. Okay, now here Spring Boot demo, simply here US underscore sept I can create it. Now the type is which project you want to create, like Maven or Gradle. Okay, the Maven project I want to create it. Okay, packaging jar or var. Var this is like through the network we can pass it, but we are using the jar only. Languages Java, Kotlin, Groovy. Which language? Java. Okay, which version? 1721 or 17? Okay, group in the sense like it's a package name. Okay, artifact in the sense like a here it is a like a artifact name is like project name same as, but I already provided like the project name. Okay, description about the project. Okay, Spring Boot demo. Okay, package is same and like converted. Okay, the next window is the important one. Okay, the next window is important. Click on the next. Now see here in the search bar you can select whatever you want. For suppose I want like a Oracle driver. Simply here search for Oracle. Okay, you can select that Oracle driver. For suppose I don't want Oracle, I want like MySQL. Okay, search for the MySQL driver. Select the MySQL. Okay, for suppose I want to add like a server, like a search for like Spring Web. Okay, now you can select the Spring Web. Okay, now like this, like all the jar files, like Spring Data JPA, like all these things, Spring Security, like Logbook, PostgreSQL. Okay, I already used it. That's why it's going to be showing like this. Okay, otherwise, simply we need to search it like here. Just we can select like this. That's it. We don't need to check all these versions, all these things. Nothing. Okay, we don't need to check nothing. Okay. Now, right now, I'm going to add only the Spring Web. Okay. Now, Spring Boot DAO tools is enough. Okay, these things only I'm going to add right now. Okay. Now, just the demo project. Now, simply click on the next. Now, finish it. Okay. Now, if you observe, like in the bottom right corner, the project is downloading. See, the project is import getting started. Content 66% is completed. Okay. Here the project is downloading. Now, here we'll see that the project. Now, here the project is created. If you observe here, all the things are going to be created. Now, it is a configuration file. Here, add the data Spring Boot application. I didn't create like any configuration file. Okay, I didn't create like any configuration file. Okay, now it's a created. Okay, now it is a created. Okay, it is a configuration file. Okay, it is a configuration file. Now, here I want to execute like this project. Okay, I want to execute this project. Now, if you want to execute this project, every project is running on some port number. Okay, here already we are using some server that is a Tomcat. It's running with like some 8080. Some port number it's going to be running. Okay, here also we have here pom.xml. We are not going to add any jar files here. The starter web DAO tools is going to be added. If you open the Maven dependencies, now here only these two jar files, like how many like jar files is added by the Spring Boot. Okay, we don't need to worry about like all these versions, all these things. Here we have different types of versions we have. Okay, we don't need to worry about like all these versions. It will take it. The Spring Boot will take care. Okay, now I want to execute this project. See here, now right click on the project. Now run as Spring Boot app. Okay, now see here we are getting some error. Web server failed to start. Port 8080 was already in use. In the sense, like it's running on some other application. On the 8080, like other application is running. Okay, now I need to change some our port number. Okay, now here src/main/slash resources. If you observe, you can extract this one. Here we can see that application.properties file here. Now we can change a server.port. Okay, is equal to, for suppose 8967. Okay, our application port number is 8967. Save the file. Okay, again execute again. Okay, run as a Spring Boot application. Now here our application is perfectly running on here Tomcat started on port number 8967 with the context path. Okay, now simply here like this, that the Spring Boot project is started. Okay, Spring Boot project is started. Now tomorrow, now we are going to add the layered architecture. Okay, now Spring Boot with JPA REST. Okay, REST in the sense that this RESTful concept also we can add to our layered architecture. Simply here the controller concept. Okay, now this type of URLs we are going to create like tomorrow. Okay, now we are going to execute in the server. Okay, all these things we'll do tomorrow. Okay, now is it clear till now?
Yeah, clear, Anna.
Yeah. Okay, now we'll do like the layered architecture tomorrow. Yeah, done.
Okay, Bow.
Yeah, done.
Yeah.
Bye, Bow.